Now I'm going to show you how I record sounds in nature and how I believe we as nature photographers can really benefit from adding this extra layer to our work. I'm going to tell you all about the sound setup I used in my recent video with the red deer. Then I'm going to share with you how you can build a very portable stereo sound recording setup that you can bring on all your photo trips. I'm Morten Hilmer and I'm really looking forward to sharing all this with you. But before we get started, pour yourself a cup of coffee or something other nice. Lean back and enjoy. I hope you'll get inspired by this. So, cheers. In my recent video you already saw some of the equipment I used, but now I want to go into much more detail by breaking it down and show you how I've made this homemade stereo bar. I'm going to talk about on-camera microphone, stereo setup, just a few tips and tricks, and then let's dive into it. When recording sounds in nature, there are many different ways to do it. The simplest way is to take your phone and do some recordings. If you want to level it a little up, you can put a microphone on your camera and do the recordings. And then if you want to be a little nerdy about it like I am, I'll use a stereo setup that I bring in my bag, and the entire setup is just in this little bag, so it's not a whole lot of extra thing to carry. Let me try to just break it down a little bit so it's maybe easier to understand if you're not familiar with recording sounds and microphones and that kind of stuff. The main difference of recording with your iPhone and your camera and a separate recorder like this one is the quality of the preamp. And what is a preamp? A preamp is a pre-amplification of the signal that comes in to the recording device. And on a phone, the preamp is not that great. On a camera, it's a little better. On this one, it's very good. And then if you go to the bigger professional sound recorders, it's even better yet. So why is it important? First of all, it's the quality of the sound that is recorded. But in my use case, the most important thing about having a good preamp is that you don't get so much self-noise. If you have a completely quiet night and every so often you hear maybe some birds on a distance, or you hear a red deer far away, and you record that and you listen to it afterwards, you'll hear shh, and that is the self-noise from the microphone and from the preamp. And that is the reason why I use this Zoom F3. I'm going to talk a little more about that later. When you want to record, there are a few things that is very important to think about, especially when you're recording quiet sounds in nature. First, you need a microphone that is sensitive with a low self-noise. Then you need a recorder with a good preamp with a very little self-noise also. The three things I have gathered here is, in my opinion, a very good and quite affordable way to get started with sound recordings. But before we go a lot into the recorder itself, let's just talk about the difference about having an on-camera microphone or a shotgun microphone like this and a stereo setup like this one. The on-camera microphone is a mono microphone. That means that when you're recording a sound, you have no idea when you're listening afterwards where is the sound coming from. You can't really hear if it's coming from there or there. When you have a stereo setup, it's like our ears. The reason why I can hear a sound over here is because the sound will hit this ear just slightly before this ear, and that lets my brain understand the sound is coming from there. And I'm trying to replicate that by placing these stereo microphones on a stereo bar around 50 centimeters from each other. So they basically go on here and the other one here. When I listen to that in my headphone, and if you listen to my recent videos in your headphones, you'd probably notice that sometimes you could hear sound was coming from this direction and then from that direction. And just to make this point clear, let me try to play a few clips from you. First, I will play a recording of the red deer roaring with a Røde VideoMic NTG microphone and try to listen to that. You can hear the sound very good. It's a great sound recordings, but you don't get the sense of room or space. Try now to listen to a recording from a similar location with a stereo setup and try to see if you can hear that the red deer is actually not right in front of me. When you're listening to this, you can get this feeling of space or the ambient atmosphere in the forest. And that is the reason why I do a lot of recordings with the stereo setup. So let's save this a little because this always have the place in my bag and I'm going to tell you why. But first, let's jump to the microphones here. These are omnidirectional microphones, very small, very portable. And these are XLR microphones that require something called phantom power. They get everything they need from the little Zoom F3. The reason why I have a little wind fur attached here is because if there is just the slightest wind and it hits the microphone capsule here at the front, you'll get this sound. So I always have the wind protection on. But these microphones, just like the other microphones, need something to actually record the sound that comes from them. And in this case, I've chosen this Zoom F3 recorder. And let me just run through it really quick because I believe, at least for my use, this is the perfect little recorder. And everything here, nothing is sponsored. Everything I have purchased just like you would do it. I really think it's so good. It has 2 XLR inputs and then it's 32-bit float. I'll explain a little later. It has built-in batteries for around, I got 4 hours of recording, and then I can add, like you saw in the video, a power bank, and here I have a braided Anchor USB-C cable to normal USB, and with this setup I have around 3 days of recording time in the forest. The thing to say about this recorder, the only minus I could find is the fact that you don't have a jack stick, like you don't have an input for a normal microphone. So I can't plug in this microphone and use it as a really good recorder with a good preamp for this microphone. For that, I need either a microphone like this with an XLR connector, or I need to buy an adapter that I can put in the XLR and plug this one into it. It's also a solution. It has a little display on the front here where you can see the different information that you need. You can see that you actually get a signal, you can see battery level, you can do some adjustments of all the different features this one has, and then it has a handy little lock function so that you can turn it off or press any button by mistake, which is really nice also. The reason why I love this so much is because it's 32-bit float recording. And to use an analogy from our photography world, you can think of 32-bit float a little like a RAW photo. Normally when you record with your phone or with this microphone on the camera, you have to adjust the gain depending on how loud your sound source is. And if it's too low gained, you can't hear the tiny subtle sounds in the forest. And if it's too loud, then when a red deer is roaring, it might clip and the sound will get distorted. The beautiful thing about 32-bit float is that you don't have to adjust the gain on this one. You basically just plug the microphone in, turn it on and press record. And then regardless if it's a quiet sound or it's a loud sound, you can do that in the post-processing afterwards by adjusting the levels, and nothing will clip except if a jet plane is flying next to the microphone. There is of course a limit, just like there is in a RAW photo. But it's a huge help for me because I don't have to worry about these things. I can have a little bird sitting like beep, 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 and then 50 meters away a red deer roaring, and everything will be fine. So yeah, that is the reason why I love this little Zoom F3 recorder, and I can definitely recommend it. The microphones, they are Clippy EM272 XLR stereo paired microphones, and this one I couldn't find on Amazon or anywhere except from the company who makes these. I believe it's a British company called Mic Booster, I think it is. I'll leave a link to all of this equipment in the description to the video or on my gear list at Kitco. So yeah, I can recommend this a lot. Let's just jump to this microphone, which is my absolute favorite as an on-camera microphone. It's the Røde VideoMic NTG, and it's basically a shotgun microphone, which is very robust. It's made of aluminium, how you say it, housing, and then you have a gain dial on the back so you can adjust it. It's really easy to put the wind protection on, and I always have that because otherwise you will have the same issue with a wind distorting the sound. But the real feature that I love is a setting on the microphone called a safety channel, and that basically means that it records 2 mono signals into your camera, one of them being normal level and the other one is 10 decibel below. And that is wonderful because if you're sitting there and you're recording the birds out there and you have gained it all the way up, and then suddenly you hear that can be like a magpie or a crow or a red deer very close, then it will clip on the normal channel, but then in the editing program you can see just below the main channel there's a safety channel that is not clipped because it's 10 decibel lower in the gain setting. I simply love this microphone, and again, I'm not sponsored by Røde in any way, but they just have amazing customer service. I have to share this little story with you where I had a microphone like 2 weeks ago that failed, sounded weird, and then I sent it in, and because I have this extended warranty that comes when you put in when you register the microphone, I just got an email back after 2 days saying, oh, they have tested the microphone and they found the problem, and it was not repairable, so they'll send me a brand new one in a box. It's fantastic. Made in Australia, awesome products. So if I should recommend one microphone that you can use, either if you want to record video, if you want to do behind the scenes videos like I do, I use this microphone, and then, or if you want to record sounds in nature with a shotgun microphone, so you're focused on that particular sound, the red deer, the bird, the wind in the trees, I would highly recommend this one. I think it's brilliant. And it works different than this one. These are omnidirectional microphones, so their pickup pattern is more like around, like a ball. They take everything, where this one is more like shaped and focused on the things in front of it. So it will reject sound from me, it will reject sound from coming behind. So the reason why I have both is it's a perfect supplement. And then we don't need to talk about the tripod. This is basically just for convenience. So I didn't have to walk that long with the red deer. So it's easy just to have a tripod where you can mount the stereo bar and then you're good to go. But you know, you can use whatever tripod you have or Gorilla Pod or something like that. So let's just put it away for now and have some coffee. And then, before I talk about this one, I want to talk a little about what I did before I got that, because it's not necessary. I used to just have this one with me. I put it on a branch with a little piece of duct tape, and then I would take a piece of bark from the tree to put over, so if the rain came, they'll be fine. And then I'll put this one in a plastic bag with a little piece of duct tape around, so I could actually do the buttons through the plastic, and then I could leave it out. But now I really like the stereo bar because it makes it better, and it picks up less sounds because it's sitting on these shock mounts. I just didn't want to use stereo bars because they were so big, because you need a certain distance between the microphones. On the website they recommend 50 centimeters apart with these ones. So I thought having a bar like that, right, will just fill up. So I looked at their website and they have a stereo bar. They actually have like a complete kit where you get the microphone, the stereo paired microphone, the windscreen, the little holder, these holders here, and a stereo bar. But since I had the microphones, these are the holders just to show you. They look like this. And you can also buy some without the big clunky thing. I want these very soon. No, but rather than buying the whole kit, which I found a little expensive, and I already had the microphone, I decided to see if I could build a stereo bar myself. And I just want to show you exactly how I did and how you can also do it. But before we do that, let me just show you something I'm really happy about. My 2025 calendar, which is not this one, but similar, is in the press right now, and pre-order has started. And just to show these of you who are not familiar with the calendars, I have two calendars, a table calendar and a wall calendar. This is a 2024 version, and it's a little beach word table stand made by my dad in our own little workshop here. And it's basically just some sheets, and there's a photo, and on the back of the photo you have description about location, the equipment I use, and a small story. If you got the calendar last year, you don't have to buy the stand again. You can save some money, and yeah, it's a good sustainable choice just to buy the sheets. Other than the pictures, this calendar is unchanged this year because I was really happy with the result last year. Only thing that is different is that this year there are 12, like the photos between the wall calendar and the table calendar are different photos. Yeah, so that's nice. And then the wall calendar is a huge one, and of course new photos this year. And then there is a change here on the dates where you have separated. So it's easier to see what week we are in, and it's easier to actually read, and it's more usable. But other than that, it's the same. Paper, beautiful paper. I really love the Arctic volume. And also in this one you will find information about all the photos and equipment I used. So go check it out in the link in the description. And all pre-orders, I will sit here and I will sign them, and Simon and I will ship them to you. And then after the pre-order period is done, I'll not sign the calendars anymore because then I'm not shipping them out myself. So yeah, I just want to announce that because it's a good time of the year when the calendar comes out. Now let's get to this fellow here. The reason why I made it myself was the fact that I could then get an extra little of these, so I can build it out to even extend it further, because you will purchase this one on Amazon, and there's a link in the description. You purchase a box of 2 of these. They come in pairs, so 2 boxes with 2 in each, that gives you 4. And then I decided to use 3 of them. They come without this, but they come with 2 of these screws, so you can actually take them directly when you get them and use these screws to gather them. So what I did to avoid the big ones here, the big nuts here, was I ordered this kit full of, let me show you, full of these. And then you simply take one of these, one of the screws here, and then a ring or 2, like so. And this one goes on here. And the way you do it is when you put this through here, put the ring, put another ring on top, and then before you put this thing here on, I don't know what it's called in English, you put a tiny bit of the glue, and that is to prevent the little bolt there from sliding. So you basically put something on here, and then you put this one, you tighten it, and then you find the perfect resistance that you like, and this glue here will then prevent the little one here from getting loose when you move it. And it's actually cheaper to make it yourself, even though you get an extra bar, the screws and the glue. And then I thought, you know, then I have it. I make so many little funny things and projects, so I would rather just do it myself. So yeah, and the great thing about the stereo bar is that you can kind of adjust the distance a little bit with the microphones. And also when you put it on the tripod, as you saw me doing in the video, then you have a really, really nice sturdy setup that you can adjust the way you want. And the most important thing is this. That was my criteria for a sound setup for using with wildlife photography. I wanted something that, you know, I could fit into a bag like this. See, here I have the stereo bar, and I can plug the microphones on so they are ready to use. It fits in here, and then I take the microphones together with the cables, and I can have them in the lid. And this is just a GoPro box that I had lying around, and you see, then voila, and I have a very, very not that heavy and a very good sound recording setup that I can always have with me in my photo bag. So yeah, let's get it out again, because I might want to talk a little more about it as we go. So I would like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video so that I can share these tips with you. I use Skillshare myself, and I used it when I was making the video with the red deer because I needed to fresh up my memory in sound production with EQ and compressor. And Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with classes in many categories like photography, graphic design, video editing, music production, and much more. And what I use it most for is things that I like, software I need to master that I have not used before, like DaVinci Resolve Fairlight. A few of the things I really like about Skillshare is, one, there are a lot of classes in different categories. Two, you can find some long ones. And the one I watched about DaVinci Resolve sound post-production was more than 3 hours long. And that just means that they're like, the instructor take his time to go into details about the different things, and I find that very useful. The last thing is that there are user reviews on the different classes or tutorial, what you want to call them, and yeah, it's just easy to find a good, solid class where you actually learn a whole lot of things. So yeah, I've put a link in the description to the video, and also you can see the text below here. And the first 500 people will get a 30-day free trial, and then I can just recommend to try it, because within 30 days you'll definitely figure out if it's something for you or it's not something for you. So there's nothing to lose and everything to win. So go and check it out. And once again, thank you Skillshare for making it possible for me to share these techniques and tips. Coffee time. Need some warm coffee. I speak too much. And I also need to put some wood on the stuff over there. And then we're going to talk about the tips and tricks and also the editing part of this, so it's really useful for you. Yeah. Let me just give you 3 tips on actually sound recording out there. Tip number 1, try to figure out a place where it's actually quiet, and it might sound like obvious, But one thing is what you hear, another thing is what the microphone hear. A lot of the sounds around us we kind of adopt to, and we don't register them because our brain is kind of filtering them off, because that can be a sound from a road, that can be wind in the trees. But once you get the recording and you listen to it at home, you're like, what is that noise? Constant, like, and then it's cars. So try to bring your headphones like you saw me doing in the video, set up your recording system out there and just listen. And if it's nice and quiet, you can press record, and then you'll pick up the little sounds around you. So that's tip number 1, find a really quiet place. Tip number 2 is always use some kind of wind protection, regardless if there's not a lot of wind, and overdo it. Always use it and put your microphones in a place where there's not a lot of wind. If you can find some trees or bushes that shelter the microphones from the wind, it's perfect. And tip number 3, move as close to the subject you want to record as possible. So if you want to record a bird singing or an owl or something, get as close as you can. And if it's red deer that are shy, do the same thing as I did. Go out during the day, put the microphones close to where you think they'll be, and then leave the area. Because the longer you are away, the more of the ambient sounds you'll pick up, and the less you'll actually get from the actual sound. Think of it this way. If you have 2 identical scenarios, 2 identical setups, you have the microphone, you have your surrounding sounds, and then you have the subject you want to record. You put both microphones, the gain, or you adjust the gain in the post-processing so that the red deer has the same raw volume. Then when the red deer is far from you, you have to crank up the gain or the volume a lot to have a clear sound, but then you're also lifting all the surrounding sounds and they blend in together. Whereas if you're close to the red deer, you might even have to gain down if it's a microphone like this, or do it in the post-processing, like take the volume down to have the same level at the red deer. And then you are also lowering the ambient sounds, so you get a much cleaner recording when you're close to the subject. When you come home, you have maybe done the drop mic technique where you leave the microphone out in the forest for a day or 2, and now you're opening your files and you have to go through 3 days or 2 days or 1 day of recording. Imagine just 24 hours of recording. It'll take 24 hours to listen through, but let me tell you exactly how I did it with the red deer recordings. When I came home to my computer, I brought them into my computer, I renamed the files, and then I imported them into DaVinci Resolve Fairlight and put them up in order on the timeline. Then I kind of took out all the bad portion, and the bad portion for me was during the day where I could hear a road and there was a lot of wind and the red deer was not roaring during the day. And I took the whole day and cut that out and trashed it. At the end of this little, it took only, I think, half an hour. I had only morning, evening, morning, evening, morning, evening. Now it was time to identify the actual places where I could hear roaring. And I did that by trying to find a roar. And I played the roar at 60 times speed, and it said like, "Rah." And then I was cranking up the volume and I was going through the entire timeline on 60 times the speed, and every time I heard like, "Rah," I pressed a marker and I placed markers every time I hear a roar. When I've done that, I went to every single marker, listened in real time, and I made it like an in point and an out point, and I cut out all the bits without the roars. That gave me a file, I can't remember if it was 24 minutes long, with only the roars and a little ambient in between. That file I exported as an audio file and renamed it so that I could easily find it when I searched on my computer, and I put it in a folder under sound recordings, nature, and red deer rutting. And now when I'm doing a lecture, or I'm doing a slideshow, or I'm just giving a speak somewhere, or I'm making a video, I always know that if I have something with Red Deer and there's a little music or something, I can use these sound recordings to actually make my product that I'm presenting to other people much more like nice, and I can give the audience the feeling of being there and listening to these raws. And that is also why I believe that even though you are thinking, well, I'm not a video shooter, I'm a photographer, you don't need all this setup, but just at least get yourself a microphone, because I think that can take your photography and your work to another level. And I think you might actually like to make these recordings just like I got really passionate about it. So, and if you don't want to spend any money, don't go out and buy a microphone. Just try to use what you already have, even your iPhone. Just try to get some nature recordings and try to put it together with your video or your photos. And I think you will be happy. I think you will believe that the time you spend out there doing this will really pay off when you come home and you sit with your photos or video. That was a lot of talking. But I really, really hope you could use some of these tips, or at least get a little interested in recording sounds. And I have to say, I'm happy to be back here in front of my little disc and with the fireplace behind me. So I hope you enjoyed, and take care and see you out there.